Angels of Hope was founded in 2015 in Sudbury by myself, Christina Scarplini. I'm a certified addictions counselor with lived experience in mental health and addictions. Angels of Hope Against Human Trafficking strives to work alongside those who have been affected by human trafficking or those who have experienced violence, abuse, or assault within the sex trade industry. I was in active addiction for many years, using drugs as a substitute for mental health treatment. When I recovered, I sought to transform my experience into something positive and returned to school to obtain a diploma in mental health and addictions. I am now a certified addictions counselor and registered with the CACCF. I'm cognizant and very appreciative of the vital role that family, friends, and my general support system played in my recovery. I am also trained in suicide intervention and prevention, trauma counseling, mental health first aid, ADAD assessment, tobacco cessation, gambling, concurrent disorder, 12 core components of mental health and addiction, sensitivity training pertaining to sex trafficking, and extensive training in human trafficking, as well as training pertaining to sex work.
Well, it was because of my mother and my stepfather that I was exploited. That's what makes it so hard, because that's the life that was stolen from me. And it was a good life.
My name is Lindsay Basel-Lalonde, and I'm a keynote speaker on violence against all persons in Sudbury community. And specifically, as a keynote speaker, I work with various different agencies. One would be Health Sciences North with our hospital. I've also done work with Immigrant Services and working with violence against women, specifically refugee and immigrant women. And also, I'm a survivor of sexual violence. Looking at the topic in human sex trafficking specifically, under the umbrella of sexual assault and under the umbrella of violence against women, 1 in 3 women in Canada have experienced some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. This being said, looking at the statistics and looking at the human sex trafficking, we have at least 80%, according to the Canadian Women Foundation statistics. So 80% of women who have been identified or disclosed sexual violence have been trafficked, and 80% are girls.
Second to drug trafficking, human trafficking is the world's fastest growing criminal enterprise. Why is this so? Victims are sold and sexually exploited over and over again with little risk to the traffickers, and the profit margins are high. Human trafficking takes several forms. However, the focus today will be on the abuse, control, and sexual exploitation of another person.
My mom was a single mom for a long time, until I was 12 years old, and until I was 11, 12. And we lived in Northern Ontario, and we moved to Southern Ontario to get closer to Sick Kids Hospital because my sister had medical issues. So when we moved, we didn't have any family members there or any friends that were close or nearby. So it was a new community and new schools and that sort of thing. So my stepfather started sexually assaulting me first. And then he eventually invited others to come over and have sexual interactions as well. I was really confused because the community that I lived in before was really a safe, secure community, and I had never really had to deal with any sort of predators or anything coming into my household, or my mom didn't date all that much, so I didn't really understand the relationship between a man and a woman. And
human sex trafficking, as we know, is a multi-billion-dollar business, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business for a reason. It's easy to lure victims, and it's easy to sell them over and over again.
Human trafficking is a severe violation of human rights through the exploitation of vulnerable people for profit. It was added to Canada's Criminal Code in 2005 and is defined as the recruiting, transporting, transferring, receiving, holding, concealing, harboring, and exercising control, direction, or influence over the movement of a person for the purpose of exploitation or facilitating their exploitation.
Well, at first I became an addict about 4 years ago, and I got myself into debt with my drug dealer, not knowing at the time that he was a pimp as well. He ended up purposely giving me drugs, knowing that to owe him money, and me promising that I'd pay him back later. And then all of a sudden one day he told me that he needed his money and he wanted it now. And I had no way of paying him back at the time, so he ended up putting me up on Backpage at the time and told him to pay him back that way. So he told me and that's how I was supposed to pay him back, was by him selling me. At first I didn't want to, so I refused, but then he started threatening me and my family, and he literally took all my stuff, because I had clothes there and everything. He took all my stuff, and he was beating me and anything until I would pay him off. So at that point I didn't really have a choice.
Exploitation means causing a person to provide or offer to provide a labor or service by engaging in conduct that could reasonably be expected to cause the other person to believe that their safety or the safety of a person they know would be threatened if they did not provide the labor or service. According to the law, no one can consent to any of the activities that are part of the definition of human trafficking.
10% of cases, of sexual assault cases that are reported to police, teachers, maybe family members, and also maybe to community services. And out of the 10% of those cases that are reported, 1% is what goes through our court system.
Why is it that some people don't want to report that they've been sexually exploited or sexually assaulted?
There's so many various reasons. There are so many different cases. Often people think because it's a sexual assault case, and which again includes human sex trafficking, that it's a clear-cut case. That's not at all what goes on. Every case is unique. Every case is different. And what often happens is when victims report violence, it feels as though that often the victim that comes forward feels as though they're being re-victimized, depending on maybe questions, and also during the court cases. During court, they may feel as though they're being put on trial as opposed to the perpetrator or the offender. It also blurs those boundaries when we look at the difference in language. So when we talk about human sex trafficking, and then we have sex work. So sex work, for example, is someone who voluntarily chooses to do that work, which means they choose their clients, they choose the environment, they choose the hours of work, and most importantly, they handle their own money, and they can choose to leave or exit if that's what they would like. And then when we look at human sex trafficking, they're forced to do the work. They have no control over clients. They have no control on when they work. They have no control over the environment, and they absolutely do not handle money or very, very little of it.
I noticed a lot of people think and look at sex trafficking and sex work as the same thing. I'm glad you really showed that there is a major, huge difference between the two of them, because people need to recognize that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that often, and where do we hear this, right? The media. Like generally in the media, you'll read in the newspaper, human sex trafficking, and then people are outraged, well, they shouldn't be working our streets. And it's like, it's a completely different category. And it's easy to be confused, but it's just to clarify that they're two completely different components. One is power control, which is human sex trafficking. And of course, one is voluntary. Often, too, we look at, from the trafficker perspective, on what they prey upon. They prey upon young girls, preferably. We talked about youth being the most vulnerable, and especially pubescent girls going through self-esteem issues, self-compassion, depending on their home environment and relationships, with, again, relationships regarding their peers, family members, and so on. And that's something that they look upon and they prey on, and they make it look like they're your friend or they're your boyfriend, and they are going to sustain all of your needs. They're going to make all of your dreams come true, and they will give you that safe space to live, and they will tell you how beautiful you are and how important you are to them. But there's that catch that they have to work in order to keep getting that reciprocation of love. And when we look at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's exactly what they're using to groom these girls.
When things started happening, I was really confused and didn't know where to go, and I was confused as to whether my mother knew what was happening, or if my siblings knew what was happening, or if what I was being told by my stepfather was true or not. So it was just a lot of confusion and isolation, and I did a lot to try to avoid him and that sort of thing, while still trying to act like nothing was happening and just be normal. We met my stepfather shortly after I turned 12. And he started exploiting me to other men within a year. And he exploited me that way for a few years. And then afterwards, my mother would refuse to be involved in any sort of sexual interactions or assaults. So, but at the same time, we all felt trapped and isolated, and that we couldn't go anywhere that would be safe, that if we went somewhere that everyone would be prosecuted or affected, in a negative way. So I let my stepfather continue to assault me so that he would leave the rest of my family alone.
According to Criminal Intelligence Service Ontario, in 2014, approximately 16,000 people were trafficked in Canada. However, only 206 of these cases were reported to the police. Of all human trafficking in Canada, approximately 90 to 93% of all human trafficking victims, they were female. 63% of the victims are between the ages of 15 and 24. And for those accused of human trafficking, 83% of those people are men. The Greater Sudbury Police Service established a counter-sexual exploitation strategy that outlines victim-focused and victim-centered approach to all types of sexual exploitation. The core operating principle of the counter-sexual exploitation strategy is the safety and well-being of those involved in sex work, or those being abused, controlled, or sexually exploited and victimized by human trafficking. Our collective goal is achieved through 4 integrated pillars of the counter-sexual exploitation strategy. That is prevention, protection of victims, enforcement, and partnerships. The first pillar of the counter-sexual exploitation strategy is prevention. Prevention is best achieved by creating and providing education and awareness about the dangers associated to human trafficking, to our community and to our most at-risk people and vulnerable youth. The second pillar is protection of victims. The Greater Sudbury Police Service and community partners identify and build rapport and trust with exploited and victimized persons so harm reduction services and supports can be offered in a timely fashion. And the victims have sufficient trust to tell their stories of abuse and sexual exploitation. Furthermore, to reduce victimization, the Greater Sudbury Police Service prioritized all missing person investigations. The third pillar is enforcement. The human trafficking investigator works with law enforcement and judicial partners to identify and apprehend and hold accountable those persons who abuse, control, and sexually exploit others. The human trafficking investigations are intelligence-led, and the information is shared with other provincial and national law enforcement agencies and partners due to the multi-jurisdictional nature of the crime. Partnerships is the fourth pillar. Partnerships are critical and essential when successfully caring for and supporting victims of human trafficking and for identifying and criminally charging the offenders responsible. Strong community partnerships provide the victims with the best care and support. Community partners can also provide essential services to assist victims in the recovery process and to provide healthier lifestyle choices for the future. In 2017, the Greater Sudbury Police Service established a new organizational position dedicated to human trafficking investigations. Internally, our human trafficking investigator works closely with our missing person coordinator and is supported by members of our integrated crime team. Externally, our human trafficking investigator works collaboratively with many community partners who can best offer supports and services to our victims. What makes human trafficking crimes so despicable and so evil is that the exploiter has no empathy for their victims. And because this human violation is so unthinkable, most communities think that this is a crime that occurs somewhere else. The reality is that human trafficking is occurring in Sudbury.
I had recently broken up with my boyfriend, and I had met my new boyfriend, and we were friends for a bit, and then we started dating. And one night he had actually asked me if I wanted to make money. I didn't know what he meant, and he explained that he wanted me to have sex with his friends for money. I had told him no multiple times, and I can't remember the rest of the recollection of that night. I was drunk and I was stoned way past my limit, and I can't even remember whether I was conscious or not. I had went there the next day to ask him what had happened to me. He had told me I had already done it, that I had already slept with his friend for money. And after that I had felt so terrible about myself. I felt like I was nothing more than just a whore. Something that can be bought and sold. I wasn't worth anything. And it kept getting deeper and deeper into it. And I hated myself so much. I had started cutting myself. I popped pills. I drank. I smoked weed. I mixed all of that together just to numb any sort of feeling I was feeling at any point in time, to do what I had to do. Actually, I thank one of the clients I had worked for because he gave me the sliver of hope when he said I didn't deserve this, when I wasn't numb enough, and I cried for him.
So you credit him, like, that he gave you this hope and told you you're better than this, and
that I deserved more, yeah. That's exactly what went on.
If you could give a message to the young girls right now that are going through this, what would you say to them?
I would say to them that you're not alone. That you may think of yourselves as whores and sluts and you're worth nothing, but that's not true. You're still a person. There's no price tag on you. It's just what someone has given you and made you feel like you're worth, but you're worth more than that. There is no price tag on a human life. Everyone is priceless. Human trafficking is where you take someone and you hang a tag around their neck. And it's a simple price. Whether it's 50, it's 100, it's a simple price tag. You've totally degraded that person, there's nothing left to them actually. And after so many times of being sold, and sold, and sold, and sold, they become nothing but a shell. Because they now don't feel anything anymore. It's just, they're just there. They're just an item that you buy on a rack. You look pretty, I'm gonna buy you. Spend this much on you and that's all you're worth. Other than that, you're worth nothing. You become a shell. Your entire person you were before has been completely erased.
My name is Kayla. I would like to share with you a little bit of my story and how Christina Scarpolini and Angels of Hope helped me. Last summer, I became a victim of human trafficking. 2 men trafficked me from southern Ontario to Sudbury. Because of this, I lost everything. My son, my family, my home, and everything I owned. It was the most terrifying and horrific thing I've ever gone through. Today, I'm very blessed and thankful to say that angels truly exist. Christina and Angels of Hope are a blessing. Christina reached out to me with such compassion, and when talking to her, I felt that everything was going to be okay. She helped me leave Sudbury safely and return to my family. We are also grateful to have had the dedication and help from this amazing organization. I hold a very special place in my heart for Christina and Angels of Hope. Keep up the great work, ladies. Much love.
Right away, I felt comfortable speaking to you. You reassured me that what happened to me didn't define me as a person. So I felt really comfortable. You were always there to talk to me when I needed someone, even when I was texting you at 2 a.m.
I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to help others and whatnot, because when I first escaped my situation back in the day, I didn't have much help, or I found it hard to get help, or didn't know where to get help. So if I can help someone move through that process and learn how to have the mindset of a survivor rather than a victim, then I feel like I can make a difference, and then I can at least turn the negative stuff that happened to me into a positive, really.
I honestly, I don't know where I'd be right now if it weren't for you. Over your organization, everything you guys do. I can't thank you enough. Angels of Hope has helped me tremendously and continues to do so with other victims.
Thank you for being here to help people.